Episode 120 of the HJ Free Webinar Series. Pretty exciting stuff. Jason Ledlow, Trevor Nelson. Thanks everyone for coming. Thank you, Patty, for coming. Awesome.
Hey, Patty, I think that monsoon, we've got it here in Oklahoma as well.
No fun. Monsoons are no fun. Breaking barriers and maximizing revenue. And what does that mean? And Jay and I are going to get into that actually here in just 1 second. A couple house cleaning things. Stay till the very end to win. We're going to give away an auction item that you can use to maximize revenue at your next event, for instance. So stay till the end and we'll pick a winner of an auction item. Can't thank everybody enough for being here. We have a chat feature as everyone's already using. As everyone can see, pardon me, and folks are already using, and then a Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen that you can use as well for any questions. If you haven't joined us before, and even if you have, this is a very interactive webinar series, a conversational webinar series where we'll take any questions, any thoughts, disagreements, anything. We don't always have to be right about what we're talking about. So the channels, the communication channels are open. So thanks so much, everybody, for coming. The impetus for this discussion, Jason and I were doing a podcast, and Jason, you told me I had the liberty to say that you went on a little bit of a mini rant on podcast about breaking barriers, about not waiting, about why it's important to take your at bat seriously now, raise money now. All these different things on the side. If you want to listen to that podcast, it's called Hey Nonprofits Raise More Money, wherever you consume your pods. So super easy to find. But yeah, that was the impetus for this discussion. And we were talking about a lot of things actually, but why it's important for you to twist the dial on your fundraising now and not wait. Tell us a little bit about what that means to you, Jay. Please.
Well, one of the things that kept coming up is I'm coaching, talking to nonprofits all across the country. And this is just something that this recurring theme that kept coming up. And we would be talking, they would talk about what they wanted to do. And then would come up and go, well, we're just going to wait till next year. I just don't know.
Yeah.
We're going to wait.
Yeah.
And, the conversation that Trevor and I had was what happens is we start thinking about risk and risky. Well, my point to that was there's a lot of money in the system right now. There's a lot, trillions. Okay. A lot of extra money, especially in the top 10%. It's a fact. It is just a stone cold fact. And the top 2% is probably about 90% of the excess cash right now. We're seeing it start to dry up at the bottom. On the bottom 70% is really a tough time. I mean, inflation is very, very high. Lending is really tough to get, payments are going up, everything's real expensive.
Yeah.
But the same things that really hurt, everybody, the majority of us really probably help the very wealthy. So there's an inordinate amount of excess capital in the system, and that money is finding its way to do different things, and it can find their way to power your mission this year.
Yes.
It may not be there next year.
Yeah.
I mean, or the year after that. And so this whole mindset of we're going to wait. Well, can your mission wait? Is that, it's you make hay while the sun's shining. And that's just where I see a lot of opportunity. Well, we're seeing it from experience. The people that aren't waiting, that are taking a risk, we're going to talk about the difference between risk and risky. They are raising record numbers, bringing in record amount of revenue, far surpassing what they've ever done. And they're identifying new donors. They're bringing in new revenues. They're bringing, all these things are happening because they're not waiting. They're doing it now. And so that's where I'm like, don't wait. You've got to exercise this now. And the whole thing about, breaking barriers, the way that you break barriers is take a risk. You have to take a risk in all things. Whether you want to go run a race or, anytime something happens, for that to happen, people have to be brave. Brene Brown, surely y'all know, she's an author, psychologist, I don't know what all she's got, but she's written a couple of books, and they talk about shame and how to break through that. But one of the things that she did, she went through and they did this interview. She interviewed all these former commanders, generals and admirals and all these, these different SEAL teams, and interviewed all these groups. And she said, you know, you cannot be brave without the absence of fear.
Mm.
So that means all these heroes, everybody, they're scared to death, but they do
Yeah.
it anyway. And so what I want to do is, if you wait to the absence of fear, you will not break any barriers. It is impossible. You
Yeah.
cannot do it.
Yeah.
If you wait until all the lights turn green, you'll never get off the porch, if you ever heard that saying. And so
Mhm.
now is the time, and I implore you to do that. So I'm going to jump right in and want to talk now about some things that specifics in the fundraising world that, you know, we talk about. And so the difference between, you know, you have to take risks. You have to take a risk. That means that you do not know the exact outcome of what's going to happen. Okay. I'm going to give you an example, but there's also the difference between doing something risky. I talked to a lady with a nonprofit yesterday, and they had an event. And basically, it was very risky, and it went very bad for them.
Mm.
And they didn't have pre-planning, they didn't, you know, set up with all their pre-event fundraising and their sponsorship levels. They just said, oh, you know, if we just have this thing, everybody's going to come and it's going to be great. Well, guess what? Nobody came.
Yeah.
And the ones that did, they were consumers, not givers. And it went really poorly. It cost them a lot of money and time and effort and everything else. So that was very risky. And what I want to just share with you is there is a difference between doing something that is risky and taking a risk. They're just very different things. And I'm going to give you some examples. I sent these, or Trevor can read them off, and we'll just decide.
Yeah.
Um, is it, if I do this, am I taking a risk, or is this risky?
Yep.
And so I'm
Yep.
going to just jump out here with the first one. I'm going to pop
Yep.
off. It's about 5 down. So it says, we raised our top sponsorship level to $100,000. So let me ask you this. Do y'all think is that taking a risk, or is it risky? Anybody who just do a little show of hands, if you don't mind. Just pop your little deal that says raise your hand. If you think that's risky, do a little pop a little deal up. Anybody think it's okay? If it's risky, you think it's taking a risk, raise your hand. Anybody? Forehand. I got forehand. It's kind of not showing everybody. Oh, there it is. Okay,
Yeah.
now it's showing. So, you know, there's both sides of this. And what I would contend that it could be both. I
Mhm.
would contend that this could be risky, or it could be simply
Never had
taking
any
a
done
risk.
before. Yeah.
And where my contention is it has everything to do with planning and how we go about executing what we're going to do. You know, there's a nonprofit a while back that they had never raised $25,000 in a sponsorship ever. The most they think they'd ever got was like 15. And so I just said, let's just do something different. Let's ask for 50,000. Oh, well, we've never even got 25. I said, you've got nothing to lose.
Sure.
You've got nothing to lose and everything to gain. You've been doing this for the last 5 years or so, and you've not got it. So let's change something up.
Love
She
it.
called back almost in tears, said, not only did we sell the $50,000 one, but we sold two for 25,000. And it's because she chose to take a risk. Okay. It wasn't risky. It didn't mean that she was going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, that she was just going to say, forget, if we don't get 100,000, you know, 50,000, we're not going to do anything. It just meant that she was able to take a risk. And there was a lot of fear with that, afraid of rejection, fear that, well, I'm going to do this and it's not going to work. What they're already doing isn't working anyway. So it really wasn't risky. Okay. It wasn't going to jeopardize the entire organization or the event.
Mhm.
It was just simply stretching boundaries. It was pushing through a barrier, and they shattered the barrier.
Love it.
Realized that whenever they started asking for $50,000 instead of 25, it opened up a whole new realm of potential donors, because very wealthy donors, when they just see the small amounts that you're asking for, they think, well, you don't need my help.
Yeah.
I'm $100,000 guy.
It's
You don't
psychology
need me.
involved.
You've got
Yeah.
it covered. You must
Yeah.
not. You've got plenty of money because you're not
Raw
asking for
potatoes.
more.
Raw potatoes. Yeah.
Literally have had people tell me that. Donors tell me that. Well, they don't need my help. They must have plenty of money. They're not asking for more. So that's one. So here I'm going to do another one. I want to do this. We're going to do away with the live auction and the silent auction this year and focus on a fund a need.
that risk?
Who here thinks that'd be risky? One person? Trevor, okay, 4 or 5 of you.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's risky to do away with
So
those
let's
money.
start over. Who thinks it's just simply it's a risk? It would be a risk to do that. My neighbor across the street did away with it, completely did away with it, and they raised a record amount of money with their organization.
Oh, really?
She,
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
raised a record amount of money.
Okay.
However, they took a risk, but they planned for this. They were very specific. They didn't just go into it going, well, we're going to save some money on an auctioneer. Well, we're not going to have to go get all this stuff. They went through a very specific program to do that.
Mhm.
Now, I'm not suggesting that that's always the best scenario by any means, but it could be both ways. It could have definitely gone the other way if they had not, uh, planned, done that, started way ahead of time and just said, you know what, this auctioneer, the auction and silent auction, that sure is a lot of work. Let's just not have one.
Totally.
Because I've seen it go the other way where somebody did that and it failed miserably. Now, the reason that it failed miserably is because one, they didn't have the same donor base that my friend across the street has. They didn't have that same group of people that were bought in deeply into the mission.
Mhm.
They didn't have that same base of giving that they could draw upon to do this. So it was risky and it failed. Okay. So all these things are doing this, but you've got to start thinking, here's another one. We're going to save money this year and our MC will be the auctioneer. Sounds pretty risky.
Risky to me.
Sounds pretty risky.
Especially if you're expecting numbers out of your live auction, that's for
But you
sure.
know what? But the thing is, how do we know? Well, our MC is a world champion auctioneer. Okay.
Hmm.
And so he's just going
Yeah,
to be able to do double duty. So we're not going to have somebody separate.
yeah,
And he
yeah.
agreed to come do it. I
I've
mean,
seen that.
so yeah. So is that a risk? Probably not. It's probably not risky in that case. Um, we're going to do a $250 golden ticket raffle. Who here thinks that's risky? And I want you to think about it in your own terms. Would that be risky for your organization to do a 250, or would it just simply be a risk? How about it? Who thinks doing a $250 would be risky? $250 golden ticket, set 100 tickets for $250, one person. You see, it's all about it. So everybody here then should be doing a 250 if you don't think it's risky or there's a risk to it.
A lot of money
But
on ticket.
is there a risk? Of course there is. Of course
Yeah.
there's a risk to it. If I don't sell enough tickets, I'm not going to do it. What if we don't plan? What if we don't have the right crowd? What if it's just too much? We've never done a raffle before.
Yeah.
If it's a $50 spaghetti, a $25 spaghetti dinner, I would say it's pretty risky to sell $250 raffle tickets. So I think all these things, does this start making sense? I'd love to hear any comments and you guys think, Jason, you're off base, or yeah, we get this, or this is something. I hope
Yeah,
this stimulates you to think.
anything that you've tried new in the last year, a risk or stretch, or once again, I mean, I think it's obvious for some reason to me, you've done $100 raffle in the past, and this year you did a $200 raffle or a $250 raffle, and you're just like, okay, we're really stretching here. Give us some
Yeah.
feedback about doing that and how it's done. I really like the one you had an example of, we're promoting all via email and all via social media as opposed to printed invitations or mailing out invitations. I thought that was an
Yeah.
interesting one to consider. Oh, thank
Yeah.
you, Lord. Yeah.
I mean, if so I've heard people say, you know what, we're going to save on postage. We're just going to go to email and social media to promote our
And
event.
software, you can do text blasts
You know,
very easily
if if
as
if you've
well.
done the background and you've already have a strong engagement with that, and
Yeah,
that you've got a 75% open rate on your emails, and
exactly. I was going to say
you've got
open
all
rate.
these things
Yeah,
going on. Yeah, it seems like a risk, but maybe it's not too
yeah,
risky. But if you're just doing it because you're like, well, we just don't want to spend $5,000 on invitations and
yeah,
stuff, might be pretty risky.
yeah, yeah.
We've always done a tuition raffle and
Good
really
question.
only make enough to pay for the cost of the tuition. What do you think about removing that and replacing it with a golden ticket.
Which is the tuition, Amy, just for context, if just out of
Yeah,
curiosity,
how much are you trying to
how
raise
much
for
is the
tuition?
tuition? And how many folks, yeah, do you usually have in attendance? And then how many folks are you marketing to in your database with the software or your email list of alumni? I'm assuming this is a school.
Well, here's a real quick deal. I can tell
Oh,
you.
yeah. Amy, if you raise
If you have
$500,
open-ended, if you have open-ended, if you have an open-ended raffle, we're just going to sell raffle tickets. It's
yeah,
hard for people. Nobody has any context of where you're at. They don't know how much
yeah,
money you've raised, how much you haven't. And
yeah,
it's just kind of the dark. But if you make it a specific amount,
yeah,
it's 100. I mean, we've got a whole deal on where we did an endless raffle. We talked about it the other day, doing 50 tickets and then
yeah,
just keep doing them over and over and over again.
yeah,
One
totally.
guy he had an event, they did it 17 times. They sold 50 tickets 17 times,
So
raised a
cool.
ton of money.
Yeah.
So,
Cool. It also
all
depends on
these
the
things are
atmosphere of your event. Amy, what is the, sorry, last question, just for context. How
Mhm.
much is the tuition? How much are you looking to raise? Patty, fantastic news. I'm so, yeah, and Patty, we've spoken about it. I'm assuming that you probably made some, took some calculated risks, prepared properly. We spoke months ago, but also, you were stretching a little bit your boundaries and pushing your creative boundaries a little bit and what have you. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. 25,000.
And that's
Yeah.
okay. So what you could, there's lots of ways to go about that,
Yeah.
about to raise more money if you want to do this. First of all, you have to plan to raise more money.
Yeah. Sure.
That's the number one thing I see is everybody says, literally had somebody we talked another day said, how much money you want to raise? Well, I think 45,000. I'd like to raise 100,000 though, but
Yeah.
45.
Would be good enough. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And I mean this very sincerely. I respect where they're
Totally.
coming from, but the reason is because we don't want to fail. We are
Yeah.
so afraid of failure that
Sure.
if we name it and we don't hit it, well, then we failed. Well, let me ask y'all something. Here's just a quick survey question. If you set a goal, if you've raised $50,000, okay, the only money you've ever raised is $50,000 at your event, and you set a goal to raise 100,000, you really want to stretch, push through a boundary, and you raise 95,000. Did you fail?
Is that a loss? Yeah.
Who here thinks that's a failure? I see it as blowing the doors off.
Yeah. I think it's
And
awesome.
because, Trevor knows this, retired professional athlete that he is. Um, sometimes you go for it and you don't quite get there. You can do all the planning, you can do
Yeah.
all the things,
You
but you still finish, but you
you
don't
want
quite
to win, but you finish
number
fifth.
one. Well, it's hard
Yeah.
sometimes,
Yeah.
and you don't know. You could be riding your bike and you get a flat tire.
Yeah.
Something breaks on you. Uh,
Yeah.
you had a snowstorm that night. I mean, good gosh, there are things that are going to come up that might hold us up short. But that's why, if you don't plan to do this, if you don't plan to succeed, then you're planning to fail.
I want to get back to Amy's question about
Mhm.
raising more than $25,000. Jason, I want you to give her some feedback because I kind of know where I'm going with it already. But there's
Well, let me
400,
ask you real quick.
there's
All you're doing is
400,
a raffle. You're just doing
yeah,
the raffle, or is this a full
but
event?
there's 400 people in the room, Jay. The tickets are $275 and they raised $500,000. I'm thinking you could easily sell 100 tickets, do a golden ticket, sell 100 tickets
Yeah.
for 350. I think that you might have the room to do 100 tickets for $500 a piece with something really, really cool, a really, really cool, exciting item or prize. And then you could blast your alumni base that aren't even at the event
Mhm.
with the idea of buying that ticket for 350 or $500. We've seen people sell, chances. And that's what it is. I think I'm using the term gambling, but there's a certain psychology with the chances that people calculate in their mind immediately. And the reason why things like the never ending raffle work, it's like $50 a ticket. I got 1 in 50 chance of winning. There's 500 people in the room. There's only 50, let's just keep this going. And maybe I'll buy 5 tickets and increase my odds, stuff like that.
Yeah.
People compute those figures quantitatively really, really quickly, actually, and they're inspired by it and they get excited. And that's why the golden tickets work. And I don't think that's too risky. I think it's a calculated risk. And if you sold $250 tickets in the past, Amy, I don't know what you have in the past.
Well,
You definitely have some room there, some bandwidth for larger dollar value tickets, I think, for
get a
sure.
sponsorship and underwrite it. You know, you'll get a sponsorship and you go get 5 sponsors, give you $5,000 to do a match and say, you know what, we're underwriting the golden ticket this year. Not only are we going to do that, but we're going to raise $50,000 for 2 scholarships. I mean, there's all kinds of things that you
Yeah.
can do
Yeah.
to go, you know, deeper and wider, especially when you've got capacity in the room. And that's one of the reasons why this comes up, and it's very frustrating, is that
Yeah.
we've got this idea. We have this idea. I can't ask people for money too much. One of the things about the never ending raffle that was really interesting to me, and this is fact, okay? This isn't just we're guessing. This is a fact of how it works because this has been done many, many times. The same people keep coming back and buying more tickets.
Yeah.
You know, just because somebody bought a ticket for $100 and they didn't win, they go, guess what? I'm going to win it again. My odds go up. Their odds are exactly the same as what they were before, but they keep doing it over and over and over again. It's no different than doing the last champion. People keep raising their hand to stand up, raising their hand. Every time they raise their hand, it's $100. They keep thinking they're going to be the last person. It's over and over and over again. We know this, that people want to compete. They want to win. They want to do that, and they're willing to keep doing it, especially when they know the cause.
Yeah.
You know, I think bringing everything back to the cause. You know, you sold tickets for $150 and then you sold them to everybody, but that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, it's okay to sell them for everybody, but I say raise it up, raise it for $250.
Yeah, I think you got a lot of room there. And then Paul had a really good
and then
point.
do a finite number of them. Do a finite number.
Yeah, don't make it never ending as far as the amount. I'm big on scarcity, supply and demand when it comes to those tickets and the amount that you offer. And I definitely think that you have room to increase the cost of the ticket, Amy. And then Paula had a really a good statement. Knowing where you're at, she's learning is to be honest about where the foundation is. And there's so many things to ask yourself before jumping in. I'm assuming what you're saying, Paula, jumping into something new. Absolutely, every event, every organization has its own ethos and and culture and atmosphere, especially at the event. And I think those are all things to consider. I thought they dovetailed quite nicely, your statement and Amy's statement, when she said they've been doing it for about a decade. And now I think that's a great way to self-audit, and where you're at is you're ready for something new. And you've experienced a lot of success. You raised $500,000 at your last event, but you're ready for something new and creative. And your audience, the alumni and the donors that are in attendance, it sounds like, would be open to that. And we say this every week, donors are consumers. Consumers are getting trained in a very, very specific way. And then donors are being, successful organizations are giving donors new and creative ways to give. And they're advertising those ways properly pre-event, just being open to it. I don't think it's an extraordinary task to be open to new creative ideas. I think they're, as we're talking about in this webinar, calculated risks, preparedness obviously plays a huge role, but that's not beyond to try something new.
Well, and we're just seeing so many new things. I mean, to your point, exactly, Trevor, exactly. We had an event just not very long ago. The most expensive item in the live auction was $4,900. The most expensive item sold in the silent auction, $14,000.
Never seen that before. Yeah.
They sold 5 items in the silent auction, brought more money than the most expensive item in the live auction.
That's crazy.
And they thought, and honest, and there was reluctance. You said, look, just here's something to do. Go do it. We've got another organization. They wanted to step out. They'd never used consignment, and they did it. They sold 10 villas that we provide. And I'm not patting myself on the back, or I'm not patting HGA. I'm just saying this is the example. They sold 10 of them for $10,000. 6 of the buyers, 6 of the donors they had no relationship with. 6 of the people that bought these villas spent $10,000. And Trevor's talking to the gentleman from the university and said, have you ever talked to these guys? He goes, no. He goes, wow, you just got 10 new donors that can write a check for 10 grand.
$1,000 level. Yeah.
And he goes, holy cow, I never thought of that.
Pretty wild.
So because they took a risk, another organization, some friends of ours, and we were able to twist her arm because she wasn't sure that it was going to work,
Yeah.
and we got her to do the villa, and we
Sold it
put
four
the villa
times.
in instead of doing the apartment for two, and it sold 4 times.
Yeah.
Sold 4 times.
Pretty
Raised more money. They raised more money off of that one deal than what they did everything else. So it was pretty
cool.
significant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, the reason we're saying these things is because it feels sometimes what feels risky may only be a risk if we're thinking about the right way. The other thing that I want to mention, and this happened the other day, and so my oldest son is a firefighter in Santa Fe County, New Mexico, and one of his fellow firefighters called me, and we did this for him last year. They said, "Hey, we're having a golf tournament. Would you guys be willing to do something?" And we said, "Yeah, we'll sponsor something because my son got sick a couple of years ago, and they took really good care. The foundation took very good care of my son. I mean, they really really came through, and so it was very very personal to me." And Trevor jumped on, just excitedly jumped on board, and we put out a deal for their hole in one contest, and we also donated something for them to offer to raffle. Well, this year he calls me again and says, "Hey, would you be willing to do that for the hole in one again?" I said, "Yeah, sure." I said, "Well, don't you want another trip?" I said, "We'll do another trip if you want to raffle again." "Nah, I think we got plenty of money."
Okay. That's awesome.
I was like,
Half
"Oh my
more
gosh." Well, but
too.
here's the
Having
funny
more.
thing, and I know these guys and they mean well, so I don't
We're
want
not
you to think
champion
I'm,
fundraisers.
yeah.
Pass.
But
Yeah.
they're firefighters, okay? So they're firefighters.
Yeah.
And what I realized was, as I was thinking, it's the work that's involved. You as professional fundraisers know this is hard.
For
This
sure.
this stuff is not easy. There's nothing easy about it. If you No matter what you do, it's going to be hard work, okay? Everybody agree with that? If anybody doesn't, we want to talk to you. We'll have you come on the deal and you can tell
Yeah.
us
The
how
key
this is
teams, you
easy
need to know what you're doing.
because it's
Yeah.
hard. So if you're going to do it, it's going to be hard anyway. Make your effort worthwhile.
100%.
Don't squander your volunteers' time. Don't squander. This happened the other day. I talked to a lady at a nonprofit. I said, "Well, how are you guys doing money?" They were going and sitting in front of Walmart. They sat in front of Walmart for 9 hours, raised $500. I said, "That's not even $100 an hour." She goes, "Well, no, we don't get paid for that." I said, "I know you don't get paid.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, I just was like, oh my gosh, that's your volunteer's time. That's worth a lot. And that's all they got. Let's be really thoughtful and not take a risk. Let's not do risky things with the volunteer time, with all the effort, with our time, the effort, your donor sponsors, everybody. Let's really make it worthwhile. And that's where I just want to say, to break through those barriers and to raise more money. So, hey, Trev, I want to, we talked about, we want to talk about how to maximize revenue.
Yep.
And I
Yep.
think that, it'd be good time. We've kind of talked about the risk or risky. Anybody having questions about difference between, doing something that's risky or doing something that just maybe has some risk, or
Or
how
maybe.
to take something that feels risky
Yeah.
and through planning, maybe we can give you some feedback to make it where it's just a simple, you're taking some risk, but it's not risky.
Or maybe
Anybody
something
have
that
anything on that?
you're on the fence about that you like to discuss or what have you. Jay, you said something very interesting that we've talked about it a couple of times where we've never seen this before, where an item in the silent auction sold for more than anything in the live auction. It's
Yeah,
very counterintuitive to a lot of folks. And so that's a
absolutely.
great,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a great idea for a revenue enhancer. If you're like, oh, we're noticing a lot of folks like, oh, we don't do a silent auction anymore, or we're not going to do one or whatever. And we would push back politely and say, well, maybe consider doing something where it's a curated silent auction with some higher ticket, higher value items,
Yeah.
because that's what donors are looking for. That's what's going to inspire them to bid, is having cool stuff, not just stuff,
Well,
right?
and yeah, and
Advertising
then
the
there's
things
also the way to position. Okay.
for
So
sure.
the silent auction was all, I've seen deal where somebody would say, "Well, we've got this item, but I think we're just going to put it in the silent auction."
Yeah, it
The
was
silent auction was the discount bargain,
correct.
bargain bin.
Yes,
Okay.
predatory.
That's what it's become.
Yeah,
For a lot of events, the silent auctions become the discount bargain bin. And guess whose fault that is? It's ours.
Hmm.
We've done this. We as professional fundraisers have done this to ourselves because what do we go and do? What do we do?
We
We go
buy
take a
something
we go get $100 gift card. We say it has a value of $100. We put a starting bid of $50 on it, and or $25, and we wonder why it only brings $50.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
It's
mean,
a
literally, that's just an easy example, but we
yeah.
do that with everything. We go and put number on there, this what we consider to be the value, and we stamp it out there, and then tell people, "Gosh, I don't know why people don't pay more. Why are we even doing that?"
Yeah. It's
Guess
outrageous.
what? They've all walk around with a computer. If they really want to see what something's worth, they can look it up. If they're
Hmm.
going to be a bargain shopper, let them work at it. Otherwise, we just want them to bid. We want them to give to our mission, not buy a bargain. And that's where we're seeing the difference. The
Hmm.
changeover's happening where instead of putting something in the silent auction is a real strategy, specific strategy change.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
this is not just for consignment items. So we started doing this recommending this with all of our stuff for the vacation station, but we said do it with everything.
Hmm.
We've got somebody who's a HBA, we get somebody who's an HJ bid client, and we're like, do it with everything. And what I
Hmm.
mean is, it's a really simple thing. You've got a, and I'm going to use the same example, $100 gift card. Buy it now, 200 starting bid, $100.
Hmm.
It sounds now. I'm not suggesting to do it with a gift card. That's not how I would market a gift card, and I wouldn't recommend doing that because I think that's pretty risky. But it gives the deal. So if I have something that, let's just say that it was donated, we have a house on the lake. Okay, it's not we didn't have enough. We're going to put it in the silent. We're going to put it in the silent auction. Then let's put it in the silent auction and let's really talk about it.
Yep.
Starting bids $2,000. $250 increments, and the buy it now price is 5,000. So now we've got something, where we could get it on VRBO for $2,500, but this person wanted to donate it. Let's make it where it raises money because then people are giving into what we're doing. There's a little bit of psychology there with the buy it now, but we're not giving a value. We're not giving a price. We're not telling people what it's worth because that's not our job. Our job is not to go and price mark check everything for people. It's not. We do that. We do that after the fact. After the fact, we send them a donor sheet that says you bought a $100 gift card, you paid $175, your donated part is 75. You received something of $100 in value, you paid 175, so that's the deal. We do that after the fact. We don't need to do that in the beginning.
Hmm.
They can figure that out. They got to, everybody, like I said, everybody walks around. Hopefully, you're using software. They're using this to bid with anyway, so they can look up anything they want to look up. We don't need to do that. But that's how you take a silent auction from being pretty risky and a lot of work to just having some risk and
Deliberate.
raising a bunch of money. And,
Yeah,
and because we've changed the paradigm shift of it.
yeah, yeah. Maybe less items in the silent is the way to go. Once again, more curated, creative, fun experiences, things that folks would love to bid on.
Mhm.
Also, we've seen the trend where it's like, oh, that's not good enough for the live. Let's shove it in the silent. And now
Yeah.
we're seeing
And
if you're very, very deliberate with what you choose, your lineup for the live, and you're very deliberate with what you choose with your lineup for the silent, you can actually raise a lot of money. We're seeing that.
well, and nobody wants to go there to buy a free dental checkup.
Yeah.
I've never heard anybody waiting to go to the dentist and saying, "Well, you know what? There's a fundraiser coming up. I know there'll be a couple of dental, there'll be some medical exams. That's where I buy my health care at the local charity auction."
Yeah.
They just don't think that way. So here's
Totally.
what you can do: take all that stuff, pile it all into one pile, put everybody that donated it, brought to you by, and call it a wellness package. Put it there. And I've used this example before, like the gift cards. Instead of
Mhm.
having 40 items, I've gone to events. Somebody here has done this before. We'll see if anybody's going to be brave and take a risk and tell us who it was. Where they take the gift cards and they made a whole basically deal of gift cards. And so instead of just having one thing, they had 42 gift cards everybody had to bid on. We had a deal where they had a bunch of gift cards gathered up, and I mean it was like $1,000 worth, something like $800, something like that. They took them all and put it into a feed a college kid for a year pack.
Super
took all the
smart.
gift cards or something, or a month or whatever they did. I forget what they did, pretty creative. It brings like $1,200.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
One, and they made it one item. They just dumped it all in there. They didn't say what it was. They listed the stuff, but they didn't sit there and make a big deal about it. They just dumped it all in there. And it was like about $800 worth of gift cards. And somebody paid $1,250 for it. It was a whole lot easier to do. They had more people bid on that one package than they had bid the previous year on all the other stuff combined. Because it was easy. It was just one thing. We got to make it convenient for people. And anybody who's fed teenagers, I've fed 3 of them, and holy smokes, they're expensive. And they eat a lot of junk food, a lot of fast food restaurant stuff like that. It just is what it is. So, it's kind of one of those things you're like, hey, or, better than that, somebody sees that and they've got if also birthday parties. When you've got young kids, you go to 75 birthday parties and you got to find something. And so there you go. It's a perfect gift. Anyway, enough about that. All these things that are out there, these are just strategies that you can go do to maximize. So like silent auction, that's kind of where we're talking about. Use it, buy it now price, instant win, whatever you want to call it, really high. Start the bid at a significant number with a decent increment and let it go.
Mm-hmm.
You can always come back and lower the price if you need to, but I don't recommend that. I think that you're going to get it. People are going to bid. That's all we got to do is just get people going, because we're talking about the mission. So that's one.
Yeah.
We talked about live auction. I'll give you a great example on the live auction. Don't get a bunch of stuff people don't want.
Yeah.
Don't buy consumable. Put your consumer items into the live auction. Nobody wants.
You experience a lot of pressure sometimes with donated items and donated homes and things of that nature. And maybe it's been in the live for the last few years, but you can only sell it once because it's a donation. That's a great time to have a conversation. Maybe it's a difficult conversation, but a worthy one, where you can put something like that in the sound and replace it with a really, really cool experience that folks haven't seen at your event before. Could be a consignment opportunity. Obviously, we're pretty pro consignment opportunities for the right event, because they can be sold multiple times and people really, really, really are inspired to bid on experiences and travel and what have you right now. Something came to me, Jay, recently, where we had 3 items in a live auction, 3 of our consignment opportunities in one live auction, and 2 different people bought 2 packages each. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So, they bought 2 different, just very disparate destinations and experiences, but the appetite to travel and to get out and around and experience things and do it in groups, actually, we're finding far more often than not, is really, really inspiring folks to give and to bid. Folks really, really enjoy traveling together these days, outside of just with their spouse or with a friend. So we're seeing that a lot.
Well,
So
we saw that the second half of last year, it switched over from going from couple travel trips for 2.
Yep.
And those always do well. So don't misunderstand. We're not trying to do that.
No, they will sell.
Group travel. And group travels, we've sold as many villas to Italy this year as we have apartments. And it was 3 or 4 to 1 last year. And
it's really wild.
It's
really,
come on
really
crazy.
wild.
I've got a question. Who here has that item that gets donated? Does anybody have an item that gets donated every year and they always want it in the live auction? And they kind of do that. Well, if it's not going to be in the live auction, I don't want to sell it.
Yeah.
I've got a great strategy. I'd love to hear somebody, we could talk about it, because I know somebody, there was a gentleman that always donated. He had this apartment. It was a timeshare down in Florida, put it down every year. Always wanted it in the live auction. He was a wonderful man, so he was very kind about it. And nobody really wanted to offend him because, like I said, he had been a board member, was the past president of the board, just always very generous with his time and his money, and did that. So they didn't want to offend him. And so what they did was they went and made a very special offering for it, and put it, used it as a raffle item.
Yeah.
Used it as one of the raffle items, did a separate deal for it specifically. That way they could spotlight it. Everybody came and brought more money in one raffle than what it had ever brought at live auction. And he was tickled to death.
Yeah.
Now, that was just specifically for that item. So that's just an idea to get around that and maximize the effort. We had a piece of jewelry for an organization a few years ago. It was an $8,000 piece of jewelry. That's what the lady who designed it and made it said it's worth $8,000. I've been doing charity auctions. I did charity 30 years. It would have never brought $8,000. It just active. It wasn't that. I mean, it was very, very eclectic piece of jewelry. So we put it. We did a golden ticket with it. We sold. We did $200. Now this was during the shutdown, so it was a hybrid event, and so very, very small hybrid event. Sold 42 tickets for $200 a piece. Maybe it was 44 tickets, something like that. Brings like $8,600. The organization was happy, the winner was happy, and the donor was ecstatic. We're maximizing the opportunity. If we'd have put it in the live auction and sold it, jewelry's really good to do with this, because if you just put it in the live auction, it gets because it's very personal.
Totally.
Somebody's going,
the shopping process for those kinds of pieces is completely different too. Jay, we had someone on, forgive me if I forgot who it was, if you're watching right now or with us right now, someone came on and said they had George Strait's front row tickets.
They had George
said, where do you want me to put these? Where should I put these, Jay? Should I put these in the live auction or silent, or where should? And you said a raffle.
Well, I said, do you have multiple people that'll pay $10,000 for it?
Yeah.
She said, no, I don't think so. I said, then let's do a golden ticket raffle, $100. I said, because everybody will give $100 for a chance at it, and they'll bring $10,000.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's another one. We had an organization. They had a coach. This just happened. They had a coach, Bob Stoops, former coach at the University of Oklahoma, very well thought of man. Him and his wife opened their home up. We're going to have a bourbon tasting at their house. It's very, very specific. And they said, well, it had sold before, and it sold for like $5,000-$6,000. And I said, let's do a deal. Let's do a buy-in. And we did a buy-in with it for $1,000 a person. They sold 8 of them, and then they're taking the other 2 tickets and they're using them for another fundraiser they've got going on. They'll raise another $5,000 off of that. So this thing will go from raising $5,000 to doing $13,000. And it's just to maximize that opportunity. And everybody has this kind of stuff. You just have to stop, but here's the thing. It's hard. Okay. Some of this is hard. Some of it takes more time. Everybody goes, well, I don't want to have another raffle. It's okay. People will do it. You can have more than one raffle that are going to give $100 twice than you do that are going to give 10,000 once.
Yeah. I really like that idea. You can have more than one raffle at a time.
Yeah.
That's for sure. If anyone, yeah, go ahead.
Well, we always say, we don't want to ask people for money more than, 5, 6 times, 7 times. I've kind of broadened that back up probably a little bit, because there for a while we had people that were hitting, you'd get hit up for money 10 times before you even got through the check-in line.
Be excessive.
So, you want to balance that out and be thoughtful about how you're asking them. For your
I really like the idea of multiple raffles. If there's anything that folks are on the fence about, thinking about, hey, I got this opportunity, you can share it with us right now. We can hash it out. We can riff through it. We can also, we're available. Jason and I do weekly coaching sessions. I have one as soon as we get done here, where we talk through some of these ideas and planning and preparedness and, doing extraordinary things, with different nonprofits that are thinking about it. Take us up on that offer. Our time is free and there's no strings attached. You don't have to use our items if you don't want to.
Our time's not free, but we're going to give it to you.
Yeah, right. Our time is very valuable, but we give it away to folks on a regular basis, on a daily basis. Take us up on it. You can just click on the free coaching button on our website and schedule it with Jason or myself. Sometimes we'll both come on with you. But if there's anything, if you're on the fence about anything or just need some encouragement or a nudge, we're here for that. So happy to do it. You can take us up on that offer. Super easy.
I want to kind of come back, on maximizing this stuff. And this is also something that's kind of a risk. Okay. Or it could be risk or risky. And one of the things was, we're paying $5,000 for a professional auctioneer for the first time. And, what's that? Talking about that.
Yeah.
And this is one that comes up a lot, and I'm not going to get into the deal about,
You'll get
having
these
done it.
questions a lot.
I've done it for free for years. I've charged a lot of money. Um, what I would say is, sometimes we've seen the same situation where this has gone really, really well, and we've seen some that didn't go so well.
Mhm.
And it still comes back to the planning, vetting that person out, making sure that they are. You know, you know how many times I'll tell you all, you know how many times I had somebody ask me to auction for them to actually
Mhm.
go, all right, now ready to go, how many dollars on it, to do that? You know how many times that happened in 30 years? 30 years of that happening. How many times?
No.
Anybody got a guess? Come on. Somebody guess, and you're right on. Zero. Never happened.
Yeah.
You know what the first question they asked me was?
How much?
Always. Well, how much?
Yeah.
Not, have you ever done this before?
Yeah.
Are you any good?
Pretty interesting
Can you really be
dynamic.
an auctioneer?
It's a very interesting dynamic with auctioneers. And I'll say,
It's always about money. It's
it's
always
always about
come down
money,
to
but
money.
I'll push back and say it's definitely about money. It's about how much money are you wanting to raise in your live auction?
Mm.
And how much money are you wanting to raise in your fund of need? And what's that worth to you? And are you open to the idea of breaking records in either one of those scenarios? That kind of thing.
And I
Yeah,
want y'all to know I'm not looking for work. Okay, I'm retired. I don't do auctions anymore. I've completely retired from it. So I won't say that there's not a number I wouldn't come out of retirement for, because there is. But
that's fun.
y'all don't want to pay it because it would be too much. So I'm
Agree.
saying
It's a
that to
scary
be
number.
facetious.
Yeah.
Um, what I want to say is, let's really start doing those things. Do our homework. Okay, it's, to me, it is very risky. I don't care what the person charges, to go in there with the person that's going to be asking for money, doing my fund in need, representing my organization, without really interviewing him.
We don't want that to
And
be the local DJ. We actually
yeah,
don't want that to be the
and
local
just
DJ.
because they put a spangler or a vest on or a funny little tie or something doesn't mean that they know how to raise money. Now, there's some phenomenal ones that do this. They have spangly jackets and they raise a lot of money. But I'm just saying those are things that I think are very, very important to ask. Risky, maximizing that opportunity. I want to talk about underwriting real quick.
Right, Jay?
Maximizing the sponsorships and underwriting. The most underutilized fundraising portion that we've witnessed, I would say, over the last 2 years is underwriting.
Hmm.
More money is, when people are doing it, we're seeing people raise more money, break barriers,
Hmm.
bust through numbers they never thought that they would do, by
Hmm.
simply giving
Ask
people an opportunity to asking to underwrite.
creative, albeit sometimes very creative
Yeah.
ways of
And
asking too.
but just simple stuff. I mean, just simply saying, "Hey,
That makes
we've got
sense.
the
Things that
live
make sense.
auction, the silent auction, the check-in, the checkout, audio visual, the golden ticket, the red carpet, the
Software.
centerpieces,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
stuff, the y'all have heard me that's been here 1,000 times. The restrooms, a refreshing station,
Mm.
the cups, the cocktails, the VIP party, everything
Food.
that's bolted down, not bolted down, you should put a dollar sign on it, dollar amount on it, and put it out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
At least the opportunity should be there for them to
yeah,
do.
I'm gonna pick on somebody real quick. I'm gonna say Kelly. So Kelly, have you ever and anybody can answer really. Has anybody ever reached out to somebody asking them for sponsorship, and their is, golly, wow, I'd sure love to do that, but we're going to be out of town that week. And what do? We go, okay, thanks. Maybe
Right.
catch you next year. Click.
Uh,
Beautiful thing about an underwriting is they don't have to be there.
oh,
Oh my
it's great.
gosh.
You actually don't
That's,
even have to
hey,
be
you
there.
know what? We've got
Yeah,
a
we're
great
looking
opportunity
for a,
for you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Be a
yeah.
part. I'm going to shoot you over an email right now. I'd like you to open up and take a look at it.
Just
These are some underwriting
where you
opportunities
want to
that
be
we
at.
have.
Yep.
Yeah.
Super easy. Some people might push back because we know you're dealing with boards and committees and volunteers and other staff members and colleagues and what have you. And oh, good. Thanks, Kelly. That's awesome. Yeah, exactly. Underwriting,
Exactly.
awesome. Good, good, good. Well, we're gonna nudge you to push, twist the dial on that even more. And and you can use us to come up with some other creative ideas too. Jason's a champion underwriter and sponsorship steward, so happy to help you there. But you're going to have a lot of folks that say, oh, that cost seems extraordinary. Well, we want to do extraordinary things. We want to raise an extraordinary amount of money, so it might cost a little bit. We were talking about, I'm talking about like the auctioneer, for instance, or the software cost, just because folks aren't used to paying for those things. But the benefit that you get from it, can be insurmountable or a huge amount, right? So, or seem insurmountable at the time, but yeah, there's a lot there. There's a lot of opportunity, long story short. So,
Well, and one thing that I want to just say is, when you start doing things like we're going to raise our sponsorship level, we're going to do this thing, and we've all started out something new and we're all excited about it. And about the fifth phone call into it, all of a sudden we're going, wow, wah, wah, wah. Feels pretty risky. Not feeling very good right now. All my enthusiasm. So something that I want to suggest to you, I talked to this is something that we've done. I do this a lot with folks, especially when they're professional fundraisers. And I said, okay, now we've got the people that you're going to call. Now, how many calls can you do a day? Guess what? Everybody always goes 10. 10 seems to be I can do 10 calls a day. Yeah. I said, hey, let's just agree to do 3 phone calls a day by noon, every or noon. Why do I say noon? Because if I said all day long by 5, you might get busy, carried away, but noon, you kind of know. And let's say you had some appointments, you still have the bottom half of the day to get it finished, to make those calls. Sister Bridget did this, raised $150,000 for an elevator, and she was terrified of making phone calls. And it's not the phone call that she was terrified, it was asking for money. And so that's where, the second part of that is, we just want to stop asking for money. Let's just stop. There's no reason to do that. Yeah, we're inviting some people to help to participate. We're inviting people. And so I think that's where you've got to get your mission tied into what you're doing, be able to say, it's $1,000 to send a kid to camp. Hey, Trevor, how many kids would you like to send to camp this year? How many kids can I count on you to sponsor?
Make it quantifiable. Yeah, qualify the ask with a quantifiable figure, right? Is what we say.
Yeah. Because if I go and say, hey, $10,000, well, he's thinking about money at that point.
10,000 would sure be nice.
Yeah, you're thinking about dollars. Right, but when you think about how many kids it impacts going to camp, and tie it to your mission, it's easy to do. We can help you do that if you need to. Because some people go, well, we do 17 different things. Promise you, we can get you down to one number. And not make it.
Then don't start by saying, well, we're a 501c3 and we
help. Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, we help at-risk youth in our community. Now, tell people what you're doing. Where they were talking about. Oh, it was Christy from when she was with Oklahoma City Charities, right? Catholic Charities of Oklahoma City. And she had that campaign. She had this amazing email campaign. The branding was spot on. And it was super. I go back and watch it, everyone, in the recording. You can just go to our YouTube channel, HCA Fundraising YouTube, and watch it with Christy Jeffries. Is really, really good. And what she bring in, 600,000
in recurring revenue.
In recurring revenue annually, $600,000 by telling folks, giving folks opportunities to give below the $100 level.
Yeah, it was all $100. Started $100.
It was like $10. A month will give 5 people a lunch pouch. You know what I mean, in our community, and these quantifiable ways that folks could help and get involved. And it ended up becoming a juggernaut. It was really, really, really cool. Yeah. Sorry, I got off the beaten path there, but does that mean we have
Trevor,
a winner? Yes,
we got a winner.
We rambling.
We want to put our money where our mouth is, and so we want to help you raise more money. And everybody, Christina Meredith.
All right, Christina. Okay, cool.
Christina, thank you so much for being here. You're the winner today. You got a trip that you can use to raise more money. We'll send out a specific email to you. And that you'll get to get that deal. And so in your next event, you can use it to raise more money.
Super cool. Right on, Christina. Thanks so much. Hey, thanks everybody for tuning in and staying the whole time and
If
listening
you
to
got
us rant
anything out of
away.
this too, yeah, if you got anything out of this, please, we're going to send a link out that's going to have this recorded. Share that with somebody else in your organization. Share it with somebody else in the nonprofit world that needs to, that you think is trying to
You know
work
someone in
hard.
the
This is hard
nonprofit
stuff.
space. You know
And
someone in the nonprofit space that could benefit from this. Come on.
so, yeah, um, we appreciate you all so much. And we'll be back here next week, another topic about how to
Yep.
raise more money. So make sure you tune in.
See you next Thursday. Thanks, everybody. Have a great Thursday afternoon. Talk to you soon. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
Thank
We'll
you,
see you.
sir. Later, bro.